I see this meeting is being recorded. I do
Oh.
not have a sign. I'm just messing around with things on the side here to get them out of my way so I can not be distracted because ADHD, you know. Ah, squirrel.
Welcome to Credible Opinions, where we bring you thoughtful insights and opinions from people who should know. There's one here with me right now. My name's Demian. I'm here with the one and only Dean of Machines, Dean Weigel. Not
That's
Dean
me.
Wiggle, not Dean Weigel. I mean,
Wiggle and I waggle, but I don't fall down.
Wiggle. He wiggles and he wobbles, but he doesn't fall down.
Yeah,
How are you doing, Dean?
I am excellent. Damien, how are you doing?
I'm good. Today's episode is entitled Cars, Content, Chaos, Social Media Influence, Influencers, and the Influenced. And we have with us today an influencer.
I don't know. Yeah, yeah.
Over here. No, it's you. You're it. You're the influencer. Before we get started, I do have to read the credible opinions disclaimer. So let's get really serious for 1 second.
Okay, yeah, I am very serious.
Just hold it. You can freeze frame if you need to. There you go. Credible opinions disclaimer. All opinions expressed on credible opinions are correct, but are solely those of the individual and not made as representations or positions of any person, entity, or institution. So you cannot be sued now because it's an opinion. That's legal magic. You're welcome.
I like that. I like that a lot. Okay. Don't sue me. I'm just a guy.
Your Volvo opinions are going to be the death of me, the
Oh
financial
man.
ruin of us all.
Hey, they haven't killed me yet, so they
So,
might not
Dean,
kill you.
we know each other from years
Long time.
ago from Volvo stuff, and we actually worked on a podcast years ago, Volvo Ninja
Hmm.
podcast. With I was
Volvo
trying to
Ninja.
remember names. Svinsky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who else was on there? Colton.
Um, Colton was on it,
Yeah.
and uh, Nick Hagman was on it.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Chirish on the board.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's going old school. That's like 2009, I'd
Yeah. It's
say.
probably
Yeah.
15 years ago. We even interviewed Grinch, who did the
Yeah.
song "My Volvo" on one of
Hmm.
the episodes. Trivia: who has a cameo in that video?
Oh, I know that he knows somebody. Yeah, I couldn't tell you the name now.
Macklemore.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. So now Macklemore has a cameo in this podcast. That's awesome. We did.
Full
Uh,
circle.
so we're talking with you today, but because you have this strong interest in cars, and you sort of made
Mm.
this interest into you've transitioned it into social media out of forums and your own interest. So
Yes, sir.
really, the first question is, how did you become interested in cars specifically? I know you're mechanically inclined, but where did the car interest come from?
Well, I love this question, and I do get this question a lot. You know, where did I start with cars? And I think I can attribute that I wouldn't call it a love for cars early on. I think it's just a lack of money and needing to get places, you know. So I learned how to work on cars very early. But I had an uncle who was into cars quite a bit. My dad was into cars, and so it was kind of easy to fall into it, I'd say. Um, but we never had like sports cars or anything around the house. So
Mm.
uh, my dad had, I think it was a '69 Bronco with a 289 3 speed, and that thing just had like cut off exhaust, and it was just a plow truck in upstate New York. So
Mm.
anytime we started it, it was just really loud exhausts, and I think that might be the one car that really, pushed me into it.
So what was your first car that you had to maintain yourself?
My very first car was a 1992 Dodge Shadow or a Plymouth Sundance. It wasn't a Dodge Shadow. Yeah, so $600 car in 2006, 2005, somewhere in there. And I had it for about 6 months until I flipped it end over end down an embankment. Yeah, it was, you know.
It's funny you mentioned that because you've been on YouTube for about 3 years, give or take, posting content.
Hmm. Hmm.
One of
On
your
the
first
regular, yeah.
videos is a Volvo flipping.
Yeah.
in
Yep.
40p. What's the
Yeah,
story there?
it's so yeah, that's Volvo 240 death. So that video has been at one point it was completely removed from YouTube.
Oh,
Interesting story there. Just due to copyright claims because all the music in it, back in that at that time, you could use whatever music you wanted.
yeah.
It wasn't monetized, nobody cared, but 2012, 2013, where everybody started getting monetized on YouTube,
Hmm.
that whole video got stripped of all the audio. Well, at first it got taken down, and then it came back, and then it had no audio. So it was just like a, watching like a silent movie kind of
Yeah.
thing.
A very short
Yeah,
Keystone Cop car flip.
yeah, yeah. But no, yeah, that was one of my early cars that I had. It was a 1990 Volvo 240
Hmm.
that I ended up getting for free, basically, and I drove it for 3 years, and it was just completely rusted out, like really
Hmm.
badly. And I was actually going to the service. It was about the same time that you and I were doing the podcast, and I didn't want to sell it to anybody because it was such bad shape, and
Right,
I was
right.
living in upstate New York, middle of nowhere, so it's not like I had a huge population to sell to.
Hmm.
So we just decided to make a video of destroying it, basically, and there
Is
it
there
is. Yeah.
anyone in it?
Is there anybody in the Volvo?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was driving it. I did all the driving.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
terrifying, actually.
Nah, it was fun. So we did a couple different scenes where we're like, you know, flat out down these logging roads. Like, yeah, it's pretty
Uh,
fun. Really unsafe things. I
I
cannot
was
recommend
no, I
anything.
wouldn't do those things.
Yeah, influenced by Ken Block, of course. The Hoonigan
I was gonna ask
Gymkhana
you.
series. Yeah.
I was gonna ask. It's on my list of questions.
Okay.
To ask your influences, whom you've been influenced by.
Mm.
So, when you started posting content, and you were kind of looking at the car space on YouTube, um, what did you think that you could do that was different? And what did you think you could bring to the table that would be just a little bit different than the other car content out there? Or were you just like, let me just throw some of this stuff up here?
Do you mean when I started doing it more like intentionally instead of
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like kind of
flipping
uh,
cars.
yeah. Well, I've always been on YouTube since 2007,
Mm,
and there's sporadic videos over the years, and then I'd say about around COVID time, of course, started getting into more dedicated, intentional content, we'll call it.
mm-hmm.
Um, you had a question. I want to go back. What was the question so I don't go down on a tangent?
I mean, it's just the center point of the whole point of talking is the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
question.
What was
Just
the
the little
question
details,
again?
right? No, like
ADHD.
what was when you were looking at the
Oh, right.
YouTube car
Yep.
space, like did you think there was something you could do different, or like what inspired you to actually try to make intentional content?
So I know that I've always been into kind of unique cars and doing something a little different than what, maybe the mainstream was.
Mhm,
So I figured, I'd just start filming what I'm doing in the garage, all stuff I'm doing anyway,
mhm,
and then see what happens, right? So here we are, 3 years later, and we're pushing 12,000 subscribers, which is pretty cool. Um, and I figured if I could just work on some editing, be a little funny, just kind of bring another creator out that's making genuine content and not just you're not being a shill or some
mhm.
disgusting content that's out there that some people don't want to watch. Try to keep it family safe, for the most part.
I don't know. You bang on some of those cars pretty hard. I'm not quite sure how family safe some of that is.
Family-ish, family adjacent, we'll call it.
So, so who were you sort of looking at as in inspirations for your style or content, whether automotive or not automotive, or did you just kind of wing it and do your
Hmm,
own thing?
that's a good question. I would probably say guys like Cletus McFarlane, Vice Grip Garage, Puddin's Fab Shop, those kind of guys kind of gave me some hints and ideas of what to do. But I think most importantly, what I took away from them was to not copy them
Mm,
as much as possible. Try to be an individual. Another one, Junkyard Digs.
Mm,
Uh, Kevin's pretty cool. Uh, uh, that type of content is excellent, perfect, YouTube content. And I don't want to emulate that same style.
mhm, mhm,
I want to have my own style,
mhm.
right? Because if you watch the same stuff all the time, it's not going to be interesting, right?
Have you had any interactions with any of them since
Yeah.
you've gotten sort of gone this direction?
Hmm.
And how's
Yep.
that been? What's that been like?
So, without getting into uh, too much,
First.
yeah. So I have been talking with uh, Steve from Build Season, who just dragged a car home from Kevin from Junkyard Digs.
Huh.
So a lot of his viewers have gone into the Build Season space, and
Mm.
then at some point this year, in the next couple months, actually, we're going to be driving a certain Volvo from Atlanta back to uh,
This is
Wisconsin.
this is exciting. It's
So
like breaking news, but not
yeah,
hasn't
yeah.
broken yet.
And there's also another uh, potential video where I'll be in Wisconsin looking at a certain green pickup truck on Build Season. So we'll see.
So it's
It's,
evolving. You're getting ahead
yeah,
of me. Stop it. Stop
yeah. I
it. You're getting
apologize.
ahead. So when you started, you were nothing. You were a
Yeah,
nobody.
I'm
You
still
had no
nothing.
followers. You had your 240p car flip video.
Yeah.
So describe the arc of progress once you started doing intentional videos, because now you're up to near 12,000
Yeah.
subscribers. You got 250 videos and almost 1.8 million views. So
Mhm.
what's that ride been like, and what were your goals starting out?
Well, the goal is always try to uh, make my hobbies pay for themselves,
Mm,
right? So ideally, if I pick up a car, if I can make enough content with it to make it pay for itself, then that's
mhm,
ideal, right? Um, starting from day one, my YouTube channel has always just been, what YouTube was,
mhm.
15, almost 20 years ago. It's just putting silly videos out
Yeah,
because it's fun. And I try to keep doing that with the content I make now. But when I put that Volvo 240 death video out there, I mean, 20 subscribers or whatever. And after that, that video went live, and then I left for the Navy and I moved to Japan. I was the other side of the world, and I had like 3 or 4 videos over the course of like 7 years. And then when I came back from Japan, I had like 350 subscribers, which is pretty incredible. That's amazing progress for a decade. Uh, um, but yeah, once I started getting, bought a house when I got back and started working on some projects, and um, it just it seemed right to film all the projects I'm doing, because if I'm just privately without filming, putting
mm,
together 4 or 5 cars a year, then there might be some gravity there to, there's a push a little bit to at least film what we're doing.
yeah,
So, yeah, once we started making more dedicated content, kind of figuring out the editing space, trying to work on storytelling, and then I think most of all working on just public speaking, be able to look at the camera and say, "Hi, how you doing? I'm
yeah,
Dean."
yeah, yeah,
That's something I wasn't able to do initially. So I've worked on it quite a bit. And once you figure out editing and storytelling and molding your channel into what you want it to be, and realizing that you need to make in the automotive YouTube space, you need to make big strides to make one video.
yeah,
So it's great if you rescue a car out of the woods. It's better if you drag it out of the woods, you get it started, you drive it home, or you
yeah,
drive it 400 miles and then park it and then be done with the car, which is an amazing amount of work
yeah.
for
It
one
really
video,
is. Yeah, yeah.
right?
I
Which
want
makes
to
it a
go back.
much better video.
Yeah, I want to go back to one thing you said, because you talked about
Sure.
that public speaking part, right? And developing
Yeah.
that. And you're not an introverted kind of personality. You're kind of,
I
well, I
am.
mean, well, like how us Volvo people are, right? We're
Yeah,
introverts
yeah, yeah,
around the right people.
yeah.
And so like, but in the right environment, you're very, gregarious is like
Yeah, open and casual.
stereotypical of a word, but it. So how did you mentally make that transition from being really sort of introverted to yourself, right, into this
Mm.
public sort of persona?
I see. That's tricky. So, I think most of all, I think okay. So there's a YouTuber Taylor Ray. Many people know Taylor Ray. I think he does it very, very well. He's very much introverted, but I think I do what he does. He's alone in his garage.
Mm,
So he's in his, I hate to call it a safe space, but he's in his comfort zone. And
mhm,
so it's very easy to stop and talk about things. And
mhm.
especially in my scenario, if I'm working on something I just start, I start going, whatever thought I have, I just say it. I
Yeah.
tried to, I really worked on pulling the plug. You know what I mean? Like
Mm,
say the things I think are funny, say my thoughts
mhm,
instead of
mhm.
just being quiet in the corner.
Yeah, that's really interesting because it's one thing to be mechanically inclined and work on projects and be competent at that. It's another to be also conscious of the fact that you
Mm,
are trying to create content.
yeah.
That's
Yep.
really hard to do.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things I find most
That's
impressive
a
about
whole nother aspect.
it's you're thinking about, is this going to be, is this the right angle, is this the right shot? You've got to set the shot up,
Yep.
still do the work.
Yep.
It's and that's one of the things I'm most impressed with in your videos is the amount of thought that goes into the chaos, right?
I have it out
Because
here somewhere. So
you did mention earlier no script, but
yeah,
at the
there's
same
no
time
script.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of planning involved.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of the planning is, I mean, it's really like I need to get this done on my car. So how am I gonna do it? I have to order all the parts, make sure I have all the things. That which is just general,
Yeah.
tomfoolery in the garage kind of stuff. You need to make sure you have all the parts to do what you're gonna do. But the other aspect is, like you were saying, I have to plan the shot. So
Yeah.
it's really it's great. A great example I think I should bring up is washing the car.
Hmm, hmm. Yeah.
I have one video that is of bringing home the black turbo 242,
Hmm.
which is just consistently like it does. Even right now, it does 2,000 views a day,
It's crazy.
which is nuts. Which it's just it that thing just keeps going. I don't know if it's ever gonna make 1 million views, but it's over or it's almost to 250,000 views right now.
So I've watched you wash several cars. And you get your little foam and the little thing.
Hmm.
It's funny because as we're talking about it, it reminds me of those videos where people are like cleaning up the overgrown lawns and sidewalks,
Yep,
right?
yep.
It's
That was
sort
the
of
whole point.
people want to like see this. There's
Yeah,
a
the transition.
gratification. Yeah,
Yeah.
the gratification is
Yeah.
based on
You
it.
gotta that's the key though, right? So you have to get that that's what makes the video.
Yeah.
And what it's polarizing though, because some people like a year ago, I bought 14 Volvos in the woods. So that's
Yeah.
another name of a video. And many of those cars, actually, I just dragged another one of those cars home today. Um, Many of those videos, I'm cleaning a car,
Yeah.
because it's important. You got to soak it, got to clean it, got to make it look good, just for the video. And some people love it or they hate it.
Right. They're like,
So
oh, I don't want to
there,
watch him. He's washing the
yeah.
damn car
So
again.
some of the people in the comments call me Dean of Clean because I'm because I'm out here washing cars all the time. And they just got really sick of it because they kept bringing cars home to wash. So I was like, well, it's part of YouTube is listening to your
Yeah.
audience, right? So if you have some people that aren't really into what you're doing, then you need to pivot, right? And going back to the Turbo 242 video, that video was the first video where I really took some time. I had bought a new camera. Actually, it's right here. It's a ZVX10,
Mhm.
ZVEX10. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Got to remember all the nomenclatures. It's fantastic camera for doing still shots
Mm.
and all the beauty shots.
Mhm, mhm.
That whole video of cleaning up that car, all the beauty shots really make that video. That's why it's
Interesting.
doing 2,000 views a day still,
Wow.
right? and it's actually as of last month a year old.
Wow. And how many
Yeah,
total views does it have now? Do you know off the top of your head?
it's something like 240,000.
Wow. Oh, 240.
Yeah,
Get out of here.
big 240 guy. I only have like 24
Oh,
things.
that's cool. Yeah. So how do you talked about your audience engagement. We'll talk a little bit
Mm.
more about that. But how are you um setting milestones and progress for yourself? Like,
2024 has been a bit of a challenge. So around June of this year, we had an issue. We had a new neighbor move in 2 houses up,
this is my
and
favorite. This is my favorite drama. I'm so
yeah.
good for this.
So we've been in this house for 7 years, and we I am the guy that the neighbors call to fix things, move things, get an
Mhm.
opinion before they send it to a shop or
Mm.
whatever. I am the guy. And I've always had a great relationship with my neighbors. I know that occasionally I do some dumb things in my driveway, and some people might not appreciate that kind of thing. But that kind of comes with being a car guy. But we had this new neighbor move in, and it's been a challenge. So a lot of my free time in the past 6 months has been moving cars into a storage unit, looking at shops, looking at houses, losing a storage unit, having to move cars to another storage unit, and then finding another storage unit and buying yet another storage unit. And yeah, it's
And this
been
is all because you've had a neighbor sort of
yeah,
go to the government
yep.
and try
Call
to
the county.
enforce laws. Yeah. Yeah.
We originally had a neighbor call because I had a car parked in the backyard. Now the car they called on, well, there's two cars. One of them was the '67 Volvo that
Mm.
was in the abandoned in the woods 35 years Volvo. And then the other one was our we have a '93 Volvo 240 wagon
Mm.
that we call the cream puff wagon. Okay, so going back real quick, the Turbo 242 video is at 240,399 views right now,
Wow.
which is pretty good.
It was very
Pretty good.
good.
Anyway, yeah, so we had the cream puff wagon parked in the backyard, and the county came by and said, "Hey, you can't do that."
So,
So
so it goes into sort of the challenges of, meeting that sort of social media meets real world
yeah,
challenges, right? And so how has this sort of caused you to pivot in a positive way? I know the negative sides are, oh, have we not gotten there yet? Or,
not there yet.
oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
we've had to spend a lot of time and money searching for a new house, new shop. We have not yet found it, and we are months into this. And like I said, I just spent we spent probably 4 days moving cars and parts from one storage unit to another storage unit about 2 weeks ago. So it's affecting the content, right? It's
yeah,
hard to pivot. It's hard to do something new when you're just trying to maintain.
yeah,
So it's been
yeah.
a bit of a challenge.
On the community building side, and talking about monetization, you when did you decide to monetize in some way? I know you've got like subscriber options on YouTube.
Hmm.
When did you sort of
Yep.
make that decision? And how many funders do you have? You don't have to tell how much money you're making and all that, but kind of how many, what's the size, the active size of your community, and what kind of pots do they fit in as sort of subscribers, constant watchers, funders? Like, how's that breaking down?
Well, we have 20 channel members, which is pretty
Yeah,
substantial. They have a pretty significant contribution, which makes up about half of the money that
that's great.
I make from YouTube, which is not a huge sum, but it definitely helps out. Which is about $250 a month right
Yeah,
now. So I'll say the number, right. So it's about $250 a month right now, which doesn't go very far with project cars, but uh, it eases the pain
Yeah.
of, you know, projects. So right now, a lot of the stuff we do with cars is out of pocket. So we
Mm.
both work jobs, and uh, we do have a fairly healthy income, but all that money goes into cars. So again, why not make YouTube, right?
So how does that feel to have folks out there who are liking what you're doing in your content enough to hand over their hard-earned money?
It feels pretty incredible. I'm very very thankful that they do uh, take the time and effort. Well, not even time and effort, because what's interesting is you have these people that really like what you're doing. They're in a place where they can share a little bit what they have, and they want to see you succeed. So, not only do these guys um, contribute monetarily to the channel, uh, they often send tools and parts and
Mm.
other things too, which is pretty incredible. And then there's a whole nother, group of guys that aren't funding the channel that way, but they send tools and parts, and they're just viewers that, want to see stuff get used. So often you'll have, you
That's
know,
cool.
older folks that are retiring or don't want to mess with old Volvos anymore, and they'll just have a box of parts, and they'll say, "Hey, come by and pick up this box of parts. I don't need any of this." Or, "What's your address? What's the PO
Oh,
box?" Which
that's
I haven't
amazing.
set one up yet. They're expensive.